Just when you think the liberal media have hit rock bottom, just when you think they can't possibly go any lower, they offer sympathetic interviews to murderous, fentanyl-peddling, cartel-running terrorists.
He says he produces fentanyl for the Sinaloa cartel. How safe or dangerous is this area to be in?
En estos momentos todas las áreas son peligrosas.
I mean, according to the Trump administration, you are a terrorist. I mean, the cartels have been labeled a foreign terrorist organization. What do you make of that?
Está fea la situación, ¿verdad? Está fea la situación, pero pues todos tenemos que comer.
Situation's ugly, but we have to eat.
What's your message to Donald Trump if he's watching this?
Mi respeto, él tiene
My respect to Donald Trump.
que
According to him,
mejor para
he's looking out for his people. But the problem is that the consumers are in the United States. If there weren't any consumers, we would stop. Okay,
there is a lot of violence playing out on these streets here at the moment every day, right? I mean, people are dying on a daily basis. Children are afraid to go to school. Do you have any sense of remorse over your role and your involvement in this group?
Claro que sí. Claro que sí.
Of course.
Pues está triste la cosa.
Things are sad, but...
Pero pues,
well,
está triste la cosa.
Things are sad. Okay. The most striking part of this interview is how relatively reasonable the cartel guy sounds. He's making excuses. He's trying to justify his actions. But the most reasonable people on the issue of cartels, drugs, and mass migration are Trump and the people who voted for him because they want to kick them all out of our country and arrest them and stop them from doing bad things. The second most reasonable people in this conversation are the cartel members. Coming in at a distant third in terms of reasonableness are the liberal media who are reporting on it all. I'm Michael Knowles. This is The Michael Knowles Show. A video of Ilhan Omar has resurfaced, thanks to attention given to it by J.D. Vance, in which Congress Lady Omar says that the people we should most fear in the United States are, of course, white men. We'll get to that in one moment. First, I want to tell you about Allegiance Flag Supply. You need to go to showallegiance.com, use promo code Knowles. Folks, Memorial Day is right around the corner. What will you be flying? Some faded, flimsy, overseas-made flag with frayed edges? Wow, how alliterative that was. Or will you be flying a durable, high-quality American flag that truly honors the day? One that was hand-sewn right in beautiful Charleston, South Carolina. I was just there like 3 days ago. Hand-sewn by true patriots who love this country. That's right. Talking about Allegiance Flag Supply. I love my Allegiance flag. In fact, I love my Allegiance flags because I have one for my home. I have one for my office. I have one for my set here. My kid was playing with the Allegiance flag leather keychain the other day. By the way, when you get your Allegiance flag, get their leather goods too. Their leather coasters are fabulous. So I also love using those. Anyway, you got to get it all before Memorial Day. This is a flag to be truly revered, a flag you can be proud of. It's a great gift for the military member in your family. It's a great Father's Day gift, which is right around the corner. It's just good to have. You should just be flying flags. I fly a flag in the back of my car, and I have for 15 years or something now. The only way you can get one is at showallegiance.com right now. When you use promo code Knowles, KNWLES, you will get free shipping. Order yours today. May is their busiest month. Make sure that you have yours in time. Go to showallegiance.com. Use promo code Knowles for American flags made the American way. A little note of caution to CNN, just a little bit of whatever wisdom I can muster. You don't always have to take the side of the bad guy. This is not just to CNN, this is to the libs generally. You don't always have to take the side of the bad guy to the exclusion of the side of the good guy. I actually understand the impulse to feel some sympathy for the bad guy. That comes naturally out of Christianity. Lord, forgive them. They know not what they do. The understanding that when we sin, it's because we're slaves to sin, and the more we sin, the more we become slaves. So in a way, we can't even escape it, like a heroin addict. Even if we want to escape it, we can't quite escape it. Okay, I understand that a little bit. The first people you should feel sorry for are the victims of this cartel-running, terrorist, drug-dealing monster. The first people you should feel sorry for are the people that he's killed directly with guns. The second people you should feel sorry for are the people he's killed with drugs, like fentanyl. The third group of people you should feel sorry for are the families of the victims, of the people who have died from the guns and the fentanyl. Then there's the fourth group of people, the fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, ninth, 10th, somewhere way down the list. You can feel sorry for this guy. And you should. No man is an island entire unto himself. I get it. We even feel bad for the bad guys. But not first. This is something we've talked about a lot yesterday on the show, and we've talked about a number of times over the years. Liberalism, it's not that it gets everything totally wrong. It's just that it perverts and distorts things. So in the traditional, classical Christian way of viewing things, you feel really bad for the victim, and you even feel bad for the perpetrator. Lord, forgive them, they know not what they do. With liberalism, which perverts and even inverts everything, you only feel bad for the perpetrator and you don't feel bad for the victim. When to use the example from yesterday, the big racial conflict that's been cropping up, when a black teenager murders a white teenager, you just give $500,000 to the black teenager. He has to be the victim. The white kid has to have done something wrong just by being white. Yeah, because he's the oppressor and the black kid's the oppressed. That's how the libs view things. Here are the poor cartels. What can they do? They have nothing else to do but murder people and deal fentanyl. What else could they do? How are they going to feed their families? Do they have families, a lot of them? I'm not so sure. Are they nice to their families? I'm not so sure. Can they go farm? Can you go work in Starbucks? Can you go learn to code? It seems like there are other things you can do besides murder people and deal fentanyl. But no, they have to be the victims. And the Americans, whose families are being killed by these monsters, they have to be in the wrong somehow because of American colonialism or because of their whiteness or because of whatever. That's how the libs view things. And so you get the worst of all worlds. You get complete injustice and you don't get Christian charity. You get nothing. It's just the worst of all worlds, which is the side, of course, that the liberal media are on. One minor usage point here. The CNN reporter seems skeptical that the Trump admin has classified these people as terrorists. It's a fair point there. Terrorism specifically is when you target civilians to achieve political ends. So a guy who murders someone on the street, even if he murders 100 people on the street, if he just wants to murder them, that's not terrorism. Or a guy who shoots uniformed military officers, that could be very evil, but it's not terrorism. Terrorism is a specific thing. It's when you target civilians to achieve political ends. The cartels are in a little bit of a murky ground. They're obviously political entities and they do target civilians, but they're not states. They're not attempting some kind of coup d'etat, usually. They operate this middle ground. So I'm all for Trump using whatever resources are at his disposal in any way that is even slightly plausible to go after the cartels. It's a fair enough question. But then again, you got to ask yourself, why are the libs hemming and hawing over this question? You got two issues you can deal with. You can deal with the 75,000 Americans every year who are being murdered by fentanyl. You can deal with the 11 to 16 million foreigners who are not supposed to be in this country, who are in our country because these cartels control the border, on the one hand. Or you can hem and haw over the precise meaning of terrorism and stay up at night tossing and turning in your bed because you don't know if some face-tattooed Satan-worshiping gangster was really drawn into the gangster life to buy a loaf of bread for his family. Which are we going to, I don't know. For me, I'm more on the side of the Americans and the border and the 75,000 people a year dying. Call me crazy. I guess that's why I don't work for the liberal media. Now, speaking of migration, Trump's Department of Homeland Security has just offered a novel solution to the aforementioned mass migration problem. Remember, we have conservative estimates, 11 to 16 million foreign nationals here illegally. They should not be here. DHS is offering $1,000 per illegal to just leave, to self-deport. And they're doing it in a clever way. Kristi Noem, Secretary of DHS, comes out and says, if you're here illegally, self-deportation is the best, safest, and most cost-effective way to leave the United States and avoid arrest. DHS is now offering illegal aliens financial travel assistance and a stipend to return to their home country through the CBP Home app. Technology has advanced so much. We're so glued to our phones that even the illegal aliens are going to use their phones to get their Venmo payments to leave. Migrants will get the stipend once the app shows that they're in their country of origin. Beautiful idea. First of all, it shows you some of the realities of illegal immigration, which is the libs tell us that these poor illegals, they have nothing. They're totally destitute. They barely have shirts on their backs. They're just pleading for a bowl of porridge from this wealthy country, and you nasty Republicans don't want to give it to them. In reality, illegal aliens are on tons of welfare programs. They're much more likely to be on welfare programs than native-born Americans. The ones who are affiliated with the cartels do have a decent amount of money. They have smartphones. And so if they have smartphones, they can download the CBP app, they can self-deport. So is this a realistic plan? $1,000 stipend, decent money. These guys are really starving, then $1,000 is pretty good. If they're not really starving, then you might need to increase the payout. But there's a little stick, which is the $1,000, and then, there's the carrot, which is the $1,000, and then the stick is DHS is going to roll in, shove you on a plane, send you to a gulag on El Salvador, and then Bukele is going to take care of you. What would you rather have, $1,000 and a smartphone, or Nayib Bukele coming around with the whip and the chains? Probably the former sounds nicer to me. So, is this feasible? Let's say you got 11 million illegal aliens. That's kind of the lowest conservative number. Then $1,000 per illegal alien, that's $11 trillion to deport all of the illegals. That would be roughly 40% of U.S. GDP in 1 year. Now, obviously, this wouldn't happen over the course of just 1 year, but you're talking about 40% of GDP. Let's say you divvy it up over 2 years, that's 20% of GDP, but GDP might actually diminish if you start deporting millions of foreigners. So I think it's worth it. We waste money on a lot of stuff, but it's $11 trillion. It just goes to show you the scope of the problem. When you factor in DHS officers, multiple DHS officers, vehicles, gasoline, bureaucrats, the processing, court fees, airfare, these big planes that are flying to El Salvador, when you factor in all of that, the cost to deport each illegal alien is certainly much higher than $1,000. So here, Trump is just trying to save some money. He's just trying to be efficient. He's giving the illegals an opportunity to do the right thing and to be compensated a little bit for it. It's a win-win. That's the art of the deal. But for the libs and the squishy Republicans who come out and say, this is ridiculous, $11 trillion, that's 40% of GDP. This is completely unworkable. Yeah, right. That just shows you the scope of the problem. That just shows you the enormity of the problem that you all let happen. Such that now the most cost-efficient way to fix your mess is to spend 40% of GDP to bribe these people to leave. So don't blame Trump for that. Trump, not only on this issue, but on many issues, is coming up with novel solutions that neither Democrats nor Republicans have proposed in the past, which is probably why neither the Democrats nor Republicans have solved these major issues. But don't blame him for trying to fix your mess. Yeah, $11 trillion is a lot of money. You probably shouldn't have let in all those foreigners. You probably shouldn't have rolled out the red carpet for them because of your cynical political agenda, really private interest agenda, to disenfranchise half the country. Not good. Now, I like stuff in particular that is made in America, like Good Ranchers. Do you want free meat for life? Go to goodranchers.com, use promo code Knowles. You've probably noticed your grocery bills lately have been a little nuts. The meat prices are going to go crazy with all of these tariffs. Makes you wonder if you can still serve the good stuff to your family, right? Well, luckily, goodranchers.com delivers 100% locally sourced American beef, chicken, pork, and more straight to your door, so you do not have to worry about any tariff pricing or grocery store mystery meat. While everyone else is dealing with these unpredictable imported prices, Good Ranchers is completely tariff-proof, 100% American supply chain, means your costs are predictable. The average family throws away around $500 worth of meat every year because of freezer burn and bad packaging. Not with Good Ranchers. It's all vacuum sealed, individually wrapped. It's magnificent. The quality of the meat is just absolutely outrageous. So make sure you get this perfectly trimmed meat. I have my only confession the other day, I was cooking up Good Rancher steaks, New York strip and ribeye. But Elisa usually does the grilling, actually, and she does a perfect job at it. And I did properly grill one or two of the steaks. I overcooked my steak. And the meat is such high quality that I feel I must do penance for this. With Good Ranchers, you're getting the best meat you can get out there. Better meat, stable prices, less waste. It's just smarter shopping for your family. Subscribe now, get free meat for life and $40 off with code Knowles. GoodRanchers.com, promo code Knowles, free meat for life, $40 off. Good Ranchers, American meat delivered. Speaking of the DHS officers, there is a video going viral, and it actually took place here in Nashville. A DHS officer, we have the video of it, he apparently was on some immigration raid, and he lit a cigar after he finished arresting all of these illegals. And he's just standing outside his car, puts a cigar in his teeth. He starts taking a few puffs, hanging out with his buddy there. I, too, am really disturbed by this video. I know a lot of people were really upset and bothered by it. I'm really disturbed because that man is here in my town and he's not smoking a Mayflower cigar. I didn't know he was coming to town. I didn't know they were doing this raid, but this brave DHS officer risking his life, doing a patriotic service for America here in my town, and he has to smoke, presumably, an inferior quality cigar after doing this great patriotic service. So if anyone knows this guy, don't dox him, first of all. Don't post his data online or anything like that. But if anyone knows who this brave officer is, message it to me privately. We need to get that man a box of Mayflower cigars so that on the next raid, he can light up the best cigar in the United States. Speaking of law and order, President Trump has made another big announcement on the justice front. He is going to reopen Alcatraz, the most famous, most infamous prison probably in the United States. He posts, quote, "Rebuild and open Alcatraz. For too long, America has been plagued by vicious, violent, and repeat criminal offenders, the dregs of society, who will never contribute anything other than misery and suffering. When we were a more serious nation in times past, we did not hesitate to lock up the most dangerous criminals and keep them far away from anyone they could harm. That's the way it's supposed to be. No longer will we tolerate these serial offenders who spread filth, bloodshed, and mayhem on our streets." I love this guy's diction so much. Back when Trump did the Make America Great Again hat, I said, this man has poetic diction, and people thought I was being hyperbolic or whatever. That's actually beautiful political writing. They spread filth, bloodshed, and mayhem on our streets. That is so much more evocative, that is so much more politically powerful than anything that the mainstream Dems or even the radical Dems, because they're not very good at the English language, and certainly then the squish Republicans know how to do. That's really paints the picture accurately. Anyway, he goes on. "This is why today I am directing the Bureau of Prisons, together with the Department of Justice, FBI, and Homeland Security, to reopen a substantially enlarged and rebuilt Alcatraz to house America's most ruthless and violent offenders. We will no longer be held hostage to criminals, thugs, and judges. They're afraid to do their job and allow us to remove criminals who came into our country illegally. The reopening of Alcatraz will serve as a symbol of law, order, and justice. We will make America great again." I really love this idea. And not just because it seems so over the top and extreme. I mean, Alcatraz is like the American Elba or St. Helena or something. It's where we banish the most notorious criminals. That's where Al Capone was. Then it closed down, not for any reason other than it was just expensive, and I guess the salt water from the sea had corroded some of the building. But people seem to think that the criminals were able to escape from Alcatraz. That isn't true. Some people, they were able to escape in the sense that a handful of criminals were able to get out and start swimming across the water, but they all drowned or were shot along the way or just apprehended when they reached the shore. So it's a very effective prison. You know, you'd have to put a little money in it, fix some of the salt corrosion, but we should reopen Alcatraz for two reasons. One, it's good to use things for what they're for. One of the big problems we have in America and in our whole civilization right now is we no longer use things for what they're for. You especially see this in Europe, which has essentially become a museum. It used to be a civilization, now it's a museum. But even here, how many churches in America have become coffee houses? or bookstores or whatever. That's bad. We don't want to do that. How many churches in Europe have become mosques? That's not good. There's something that feels very wrong about that. When you take something and transform it and use it against its original purpose. Parks and playgrounds. It's good to use parks and playgrounds. Now so many of them have become dog parks. Used to be for kids. Now they're for dogs. That's not good. We built them for kids. It's good to have kids. It's better to have kids than to have dogs and pretend that the dogs are kids. We pervert those things. Marriages. Marriages were for having children and as a secondary matter for the mutual support of the spouses. Now marriages are for what? Splitting the rent and going on vacation and eating brunch? We don't know what it's... And so that all of these things lose their coherence. Our whole society loses its coherence when you don't use the thing for what it's for. So that's a long and probably needlessly philosophical way to say, I think we should use prisons to be prisons. But then the second reason that it's good that Trump is reopening Alcatraz is it shows a rethinking of our criminal justice problem. For decades, we have heard from the left and from libertarians on the right that America has an over-incarceration problem. But we don't. We have an under-incarceration problem. We have rampant crime. We have many people being murdered, not just by guns and knives and direct killings, but as I mentioned earlier, 75,000 Americans per year being poisoned by fentanyl, by the criminals who control our entire border and who flood our country with millions of other criminals. We have a massive under-incarceration problem. So what the Libs and the Squishes want to do is they want to close prisons. The extreme left wants to abolish prisons altogether, as Rashida Tlaib and the rest of the squad suggested over the past 5-6 years. What Trump is saying is, no. We need more prisons. And in fact, we are going to reopen America's most notorious prison. We're going to make it tougher than ever. And we're going to put more criminals in there. When the crime rates diminish, that's when you could start talking about over-incarceration. For right now, though, we have under-incarceration. We need that rethinking. A fundamental shift in how we even approach criminal justice. Should not be, how do we get these people out of it? No, it's how do we get more people into the prisons? And how do we make sure they stay locked away? And how do we make sure that we surround them by sharks so they never try to swim out? That would be justice. Now, speaking of justice, we need to establish justice for the most vulnerable among us. That's why you got to check out Preborn. Go to preborn.com/Knowles. With Mother's Day just around the corner, I want to share an amazing organization that's making a real difference for mothers in need, and that is Preborn. Their network of clinics provides love, support, and hope to pregnant women who are feeling scared, alone, or pressured about their pregnancy decisions. These choices can affect not just their baby's life, but their own emotional well-being too. When a woman walks into a preborn clinic, she is welcomed with compassion and offered a free ultrasound so she can see and hear the little life growing inside her. You know what? Most of the time, this powerful moment helps her choose life. This Mother's Day, you can help both a mother in crisis and her baby. Just $28 provides one ultrasound, or $140 covers 5. Every dollar goes directly to supporting these moms and babies. Plus, monthly sponsors receive photos and stories of the lives they've helped save. You want to get involved? It's easy. Dial pound 250, say baby, or visit preborn.com/Knowles, KNWLES. Make a difference this Mother's Day by supporting both mothers and their babies. That is preborn.com/Knowles. I personally support this organization. I encourage you to give whatever you can. Get involved today and affect generations to come. Speaking of bad guys and the squad in Congress, J.D. Vance just called attention to an old video of Ilhan Omar. This video was from 2018. It's a little while ago now, when Ilhan Omar was first coming onto the scene in politics. J.D. Vance just pulled this back up, and his comment on it was, this isn't just sick, it's actually genocidal language. What a disgrace this person is, Ilhan Omar. What's the video? What did she say? Here it is.
I would say our country should be more fearful of white men across our country, because they are actually causing most of the deaths within this country. We should be profiling, monitoring, and creating policies to fight the radicalization of white men.
Okay, just a little fact check here. The actual leading cause of death in America is heart disease. It's not white men. It's not black men. It's heart disease. And it's not even causing most of the deaths. It's causing about 20% of all deaths. So at the plurality, I guess, but it's not. It ain't white men. White men, we don't have really firm figures on this, also because the Bureau of Justice Statistics kind of cooks the numbers a little bit. But white men commit, at most, 46 to 47% of the murders in the country. And the category of white men, for some reason now, includes lots of Hispanics. So even that number is a little silly. But let's say it's at most 46 to 47% of the murders in the country. White people are 60% of the population, but they commit 46 to 47% of the murders. At least 18 to 19% of the murders in the country are committed by Hispanic men. At least 33 to 34% of the murders are committed by black men. Obviously, Hispanic men, much smaller proportion of the population than white men. Black men, a much smaller proportion of the population still. So that's nothing new. We've known that for a long time. Ilhan Omar is trying to flip the script here. She's saying, well, you think that black men commit a disproportionate number of violent crimes, but actually, I'm going to say that white men are really bad. And it's not really based on anything. It's based on a very, very tenuous grasp of statistics and actually just outright deception. But I'm saying white men are bad. What do you think about that? Like, wow, golly. That's really made me rethink the issue. You don't like white men. Okay. Really here, I fly through the statistics on this from heart disease to murder because she doesn't really care. She doesn't really care. There is a way to bring up statistics. Well, she does it in a dishonest way that isn't even close to a reflection of the real circumstances. But there is a way to bring up statistics in a cruel and unproductive way, which is to say, black men are a small percent of the population, and they commit most of the crimes. Those black men, and you start saying racial slurs or something like that. That's not. There's another way to say, hey, black men are a relatively small number of the population, and yet they disproportionately commit crimes. And so we should try to fix that, shouldn't we? And we should try to, when they commit those crimes, we should take that very seriously and imprison them for a long time and try to reform them. We should try to stop them from committing crimes in the first place, because this is really bad for black women and for these communities, black communities and mixed race communities. And it's really bad for the common good. And it's obviously bad for the victims, but it's bad for the perpetrators too, because we can feel bad for the perpetrators, but only in a proper order of our sympathies, with the victims being first. And we have a responsibility to our constituents, blah, 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 blah. That's another way to do it. You're citing the same statistic in both cases. What's the difference? It's exactly what we were talking about yesterday on this whole racial question of the woman who called the kid the N-word because the kid was stealing from her toddler, and then the accused Somali pedophile filmed her and harassed her, and then the woman raised $500,000. What's the difference on all of these racial issues? Seems to me the difference is charity. You can say the exact same statistic. If you have charity or you don't have charity, totally different things. Ilhan Omar obviously has no charity here. Do you think she's bringing up a false statistic that white men are the leading cause of death in America because she wants to solve any problems, even an imaginary problem like the one she's making up here? No, she just doesn't like white men. That's what it's about. Actually, white men are really bad. Okay, Ilhan, you've expressed your contempt for white men. Can we move on now? Can serious people start trying to conduct politics? That'd be great. I'd love that. Speaking of unpleasant Democrat women, President Trump has just called out the new rising star. Forget about Ilhan. She's old news. Forget about AOC. She's passé. Rashida Tlaib and that other one, Ayanna Pressley, they were always kind of the junior members, the George Harrison and the Ringo Starr, respectively, of the squad. There's a new Democrat saucy star in town. That would be Jasmine Crockett, and Trump is calling her out by name.
I look at the Democrats, they're in total disarray. They have a new person named Crockett. I watched her speak the other day. She's definitely a low IQ person. And they said, she's the future of the party. I said, you have to be kidding. I don't know what they're going to do.
He didn't even have good sense enough in that same interview to say something as simple as, yes, I will follow the Constitution. You know, the thing that actually derived from the oath that he was supposed to take. And he supposedly took an oath, which there's a lot of people that point out that he never put his hand on the Bible, even though he acts as if he could somehow be the Pope. But nevertheless, that oath specifically says that you will defend the Constitution.
What? What did she just say? She said he... Can you play it again? I'm sorry. I'm not being cute about this. I actually am going to try to track what she said. So first, of course, first part of the clip, Trump points out she might not have a very high IQ.
Something as simple as, yes, I will follow the Constitution.
Yes,
you know, the thing that actually derived from the oath that he was supposed to take. And he supposedly took an oath, which there's a lot of people that point out that he never put his hand on the Bible, even though he acts as if he could somehow be the Pope. But nevertheless, that oath specifically says that you will defend.
He wants to be the Pope. And I think she might have proved his point. He took an oath. The Constitution derives from the oath he took to defend the Constitution. I don't think that's how derivation works. Anyway, enough. No one has ever accused Jasmine Crockett of brain surgery. Trump is doing this on purpose. Trump is calling her out because he's really good at TV. He's really good at show business. He's been in it for a long time. He was the top of the ratings in network television. He's just very entertaining. So he knows she makes great TV and she's the perfect Democrat foil. She's the hyper real version of AOC. It's like you took AOC and then you concentrated her down even more. This woman makes AOC sound like a university professor. Oh, wow, this is really good. You get this Democrat who doesn't know anything, who sounds like she barely has a grasp on the English language, who's audacious, who's offensive. You know what we're going to do? We're going to give her a lot of attention. Because Trump knows the power of his words. And so when Trump calls out a Democrat, especially if he picks a fight with a Democrat. I mean, in fairness, she's been fighting with him before he ever knew her name. But Trump knows that if he gives her that spotlight, that's where all the attention is going to go. And he's going to make her a thing. And that's very bad news for Democrats because she is not likable and she is not articulate and she doesn't really seem to know anything at all, which means Republicans should be thrilled about this. I am now voting. You know, we were talking about maybe the Democrats kicking out David Hogg, one of the least likable Democrats in the country, who is now the Democrat vice chairman. And who knows, he might lose his seat. I want this woman to become the chairman of the DNC and the chairman of the DCCC, the Congressional Campaign Committee, and the Senate Committee. And I want her to run for president. Love that. Love that. Get that woman on TV all day long. Folks, our very own Andrew Klavan has a brand new book out. It is a must-read. It is called The Kingdom of Cain, Finding God in the Literature of Darkness. Only Drew could take Cain and Abel, Dostoevsky, and Hitchcock and pull out a powerful case for faith in a fallen world. It is sharp. It is moving. It is exactly what you would expect from one of the great novelists of our era and a man who has been around since possibly before Moses, certainly before Socrates and Aristotle. So he's got a lot of wisdom. He's been around a long time. Okay, make sure to get your copy today at store.dailywire.com. My favorite comment yesterday is from @DeaconCarter3459, who says, "She got 500K? I've been saying it for free." Okay, no, don't. You should not. That's not good. You should be polite in your language. There are taboos that exist. Some are more serious than others, but you have to recognize there is such a thing as that. You don't want to call anyone that, and you certainly don't want to call a kid that, but don't. I did have this thought though yesterday. I thought, what is an obscure racial group that I would be willing to offend for $500,000? I think the woman's now raised something like $700,000. What the Albanians, maybe? Would I be willing to offend the Albanians to get a beach house? I don't know. What's a good, maybe the Tibetans? What are they going to do? They're not going to do anything to me. Would I be willing? What's a Tibetan slur? I don't know. I don't have any. But let me know. If I could raise $700,000 on it, I would have to strongly consider it. Speaking of Democrat strategy, the new Democrat narrative is launched. You probably haven't even noticed it yet, but this is going to work its way, not just through the Jasmine Crockett's of the world, but through the mainstream establishment Democrat outlets. New York Times, Washington Post, all the rest. The narrative is that President Trump is enriching himself. He's violating the Emoluments Clause. He's enriching himself. He's sending his kids around the world to raise money on his political influence. And Don Jr. is the new Hunter Biden. That's the narrative. Here it is in the New York Times just yesterday. Trump's son's deals on 3 continents directly benefit the president. Donald Trump Jr. and Eric Trump spent the last 2 weeks traveling the world and announcing new ventures involving billions of dollars. First paragraph. A contest of sorts has played out across Europe, the United States, and the Middle East in recent days as President Trump's 2 older sons have pursued a blitz of family money-making ventures capitalizing on their father's name and power, each seemingly trying to outdo the other. It is a rush to cash in that involves billions of dollars with few precedents in American history. All right, you get the rest of it. I don't need to read the rest. They're trying to turn Don Jr. into the new Hunter Biden. And people who are shallow in their analysis are going to buy it. That's why it's a narrative that they're willing to try out on their mainstream outlets. But the comparison is totally preposterous. The Trump Organization has existed with business interests around the world for a very, very long time. In 2015, before Trump became president or ran for president, the Trump Organization had properties built or underway in, of course, lots of parts of the United States, and Scotland, Canada, Panama, Dubai, Turkey, India, Azerbaijan, Brazil, and South Korea. That wasn't Trump cashing in after he was president, after he was elected president, even after he ran for president. That was Trump just being Trump, being a successful businessman. Deals that in some cases were inked decades prior. Donald Trump Jr. has worked for the Trump Organization for something like 24, 25 years. Don Jr. worked for the Trump Organization for 15 years before Trump got elected, the first time. The reason that Hunter Biden taking money from all of these corrupt governments around the world was a big scandal is because Hunter Biden didn't have any skills. So when Hunter Biden is paid $1 million from the Ukrainian natural gas state-owned conglomerate, that's a scandal because Hunter Biden doesn't know anything about natural gas. He doesn't know anything about Ukraine. He doesn't speak the language. He was a drug addict who took money to try so that this corrupt government in Ukraine could buy the influence of his father, who was then the vice president. That's why that was a scandal. It would not have been a scandal had Hunter Biden actually been a businessman with business deals and relationships that predated his father's entry into politics. That wouldn't have been possible because Joe Biden has been a senator since before he was legally allowed to be a senator. The Trump Organization is different. The Trump Organization's international interests long predated Trump's entry into politics. So what the Libs could try to argue now is, well, yeah, but he should have divested all of his interests or something. First of all, how is Trump going to divest from Trump? The organization is him. It's the Trump Organization, okay? It's built on his reputation, his charisma, his skills. So you can't quite, it's not quite like Dick Cheney, selling his shares of Halliburton or something like that. It's Trump. Trump could practically try to lose, or in principle, lose every interest he has in the Trump Organization. It's still a Trump Organization. So really what the Libs are arguing, I'm trying to be as sympathetic to their argument as possible. Really what they're arguing is we should never have a businessman as president because businessmen build up business interests and a business reputation over the decades, and often they have their family members, their children, take on the family business, and we just shouldn't have businessmen in politics. But guess what? The American people intentionally elected a businessman to high political office. because he was a businessman in large part. Because we've had feckless political operatives and bureaucrats running the show for a long time, and they've really screwed it up. So Trump runs for office on being a businessman. By the way, he's not the only one. Mitt Romney ran for office on being a businessman. The big pitch for Mitt Romney at the RNC that year was that Romney knows about business and we need a businessman in office to clean up the government. Calvin Coolidge said 100 years ago that the business of America is business. The businessman knows his business best. So the libs can make that argument all they want. But this comparison between Trump and Biden is just completely preposterous. A successful business continuing to have business interests as it has for 40, 50 years is not the same as some crook, crackhead, failed lawyer going around with a money bag when his dad is the vice president so he can shake down foreign governments for bribes. Those are completely different situations. And the irony, of course, is the New York Times would not have wanted to investigate Joe Biden or Hunter Biden for obvious corruption. And yet they go after Trump for having totally transparent business interests that the American people knew when they elected him with the popular vote. Speaking of parents and their children, there's a disturbing story. Disturbing story out of the Financial Times. The rise of single parents by choice. Not the rise of single parents. Single parents have been around for a long time. Some of us, some of our best friends were raised by single parents. Single parents by choice. Navigating work and family brings particular pressures for those deciding to have children alone. First paragraph, they call it the 5 to midnight thing, says Annabelle Deering, senior legal counsel at NBW, an energy company. As she turned 39, Deering, then single, realized time was running out to have a child. She goes on, she says, I was busy. I was working, I had my career, I played hard, I went to a lot of brunches, but I never felt like I had a purpose. Then a friend suggested I have a baby. And so she goes out and has a baby. The number of single patients undertaking fertility treatments, including IVF and donor insemination in the UK, rose from 305 in 1999 to 4,660 in 2022, according to the data from the Human Fertilization and Embryology Authority. This is not a good way to start out being a parent. This is understandable. Everything that article is describing, I know people. We all know people like this because our culture has told women to prioritize career and have promiscuous sex and don't take relationships seriously and definitely don't get married young and maybe don't get married at all. But then nature wins again. Women reach a certain age. They say, the casual sex and the brunches and working in the widget factory for Dr. McGillicuddy, it's not cutting it. I want to have a kid. But I don't have a boyfriend. I don't have a husband. Time's running out. I'm just going to have a kid. I'm just going to go to it. I'm going to go to the baby store. I'm going to purchase some guy's sperm. And then I'm going to have a kid and I'm going to intentionally create a child with the purpose of depriving him of his father. This is the worst possible way to start out as a parent because you are beginning your journey as a parent by prioritizing your own desires over what is best for your child. Right at the beginning, if you start out this way, you are starting out being a parent from a position of failure. Doesn't mean you can't try to make the best of a bad situation, but this is the worst possible way to start. It is the fundamental distinction between classical and liberal society. The classical society, we were talking about it earlier in the show, we were talking about it with Alcatraz. The classical society knows what things are from their natures and knows their natures in large part by what they're for. What is a thing for? Show me what a thing is for, I'll tell you what a thing is. And liberal society says, no. Things can be whatever I want them to be. So the classical society, to put it even more simply, classical society is ordered toward the good of the child, the good of the family, the good of the community, the good, the ultimate good. It's ordered toward God. That's true even in pagan societies. to varying degrees. Certainly in our Christian society, it's ordered toward God. Liberal society makes you a god, makes the individual a god. Self-deification. So here you say, okay, great. Well, God can create without any human interaction at all. God just creates things out of nothing. Well, that's what I'm going to do. In the ordinary course of things, if you want to create a child, you need a member of the opposite sex, and ideally you get married for life, and then you do that thing the married couples do, and then you get a child. But that means that I'm dependent on someone. That means that I don't have full use of my autonomy. That means that I'm not God. So if I want to be God, or if I want to flatter myself into pretending that I'm God, then I'm not going to go find another person and engage in the compromises and even sometimes the suffering that goes along with living as a political animal. No. I'm just going to go take whatever money I've earned at the widget factory. I'm going to spend all of it at the baby store. I'm going to buy some guy's sperm, some pervert, degenerate guy's sperm. I'm going to buy it, and then I'm going to create a kid, and the kid's going to suffer because he was created never to know his father. But I might finally feel a purpose. Maybe. Not a good way to start. Really bad for the kids, but I don't even just bring up this story as a kind of church lady, won't somebody please think of the children? I mean, I just won't somebody think of anything at all? It's so perfectly backwards. Hard to go right from there. On that chipper note, today's Tee-Hee-Hee Tuesday. The rest of the show continues now. You do not want to miss it. Become a member. Use code Knowles, Knowles, at checkout for 2 months free on all annual plans.